Welcome back. Parenting is a full-time job where no day is ever the same. Kate Littlefield, a counselor with 3 to Thrive, says it's common for moms and families alike to get caught up with trying to set routines, which can often result in neglecting one's own mental health. We spoke with her about the importance of taking that needed break while also checking in with yourself and mom. Thanks so much for joining us on NBC5 In Depth again. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I wanted to bring you in because we're talking about how we celebrate Mother's Day and thinking about all the ways that parents can celebrate the holiday, but also take that break from parenting because there's a lot that goes on. But more importantly, we know that May is Maternal Mental Health Month. Yep. It's something that you have talked about before. Tell me a little bit about just the significance of this month and why it's something that most people don't necessarily think of.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge month for bringing awareness to maternal mental health. Mental health conditions or complications are the most common complication of birth in the United States. And I think that's a statistic that the vast majority of people are shocked by. More than any other condition of pregnancy and delivery, mental health complications are, in fact, 1 in 5 moms and birthing people, and actually 1 in 10 dads. So it's not even just moms, but 1 in 5 is a staggering number when you really think about it. And May is really the time to be bringing these conversations to light, getting people informed, normalizing. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things about May is that I'm like, I want mothers and parents to know they are not alone. They're not some oddball that's like having this weird feeling that nobody else has. It is the most common complication of birth. I'm going to say it a million times because it is such an isolating experience to feel like not bonded with your kids the way other people feel, or to feel really anxious, depressed, sad, having recurring, repeated thoughts. All of these fall under the umbrella of maternal mental health conditions, and they're not rare. They are not rare, and mothers are not alone. There's a ton of support and a ton of free support. That's the other piece too that a lot of people don't know about. Even providers don't know how much free support is available to moms. There's so much shame and stigma around mental health and mental health complications that it's not as common for parents to become a unified front around it and support each other. And this is a great month to really be doing stories like this and having some of these bigger conversations, even if you're long past having young kids. If for parents that are watching this who maybe have a teenager, like, talk to each other to be like, hey, I just saw this thing. Did you ever have challenges after the kids were born? It doesn't matter how old your kids are. It's never too late to have the conversation, talk about it with somebody you know who's got young kids or a baby or is pregnant, grandparents who are expecting a new grandbaby. Like, this applies to everybody. This is for the whole entire family system to be thinking about, talking about, and feeling about together.
Now, I know that you deal with folks who are kind of on all across the spectrum when it comes to their parenting journey. What would you say are some of the biggest obstacles here in the year 2026 that folks are really thinking about, whether that's environmental, financial, trying to juggle career while also being a good parent? What are some of those commonalities that we're seeing among families?
Yeah. Well, if we're just looking at 2026, people are struggling. I'm not going to lie. People are struggling with all kinds of things, from work, finding jobs that pay enough, benefits, insurance is a big one. For self-employment folks, that's another area that has been stressful. There's a ton of stressors. There's a lot of narratives that I'm hearing right now of like, how am I going to raise my kids through in a world like this? Like, how do I explain to them current events without them being totally scared and freaked out by the world? So I would say that there's more stressors on parents now than I've ever seen in my 15 plus years of doing this work. Parents are pulled and stretched in a lot of directions, not to mention that communities are getting smaller. So kids and parents and family members are living farther away from each other. So there's not as much of that natural community support as we used to once have.
You make a really interesting point because we all know that saying it really does take a village to raise kids. How do we make sure that, when we're in a situation where maybe we're living far from a relative, how do we get our community behind us to kind of craft that village for our kids?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's easier said than done. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be real with you, Adrian. It is hard to do that. It does take a level of vulnerability to reach out to people at your kids' school, your kids' friends, parents, to say, say, hey, I'm really in a bind on Wednesdays. Can we consider like a childcare swap? Or, it takes a lot of intentional effort to do community action. So some of the things that we do, me and my partner do, is we do like a Sunday meetup, and we have a group text of other kids that go to my kids' school from their classrooms, and we send out a group text and say, hey, we're meeting up on Sunday to go biking at the high school parking lot. Or we are gonna have some people over for a potluck barbecue, bring something, let's get together. But it really does take people. Somebody in a group, somebody in a community has to start leading that charge to invite other people into their life. And that's a vulnerable thing because we're scared that people are going to be too busy. We don't want to be a burden, right? And so some of the thing that we need to let go of as parents is worrying about how we're going to be perceived by other people and start asking for help. That's really hard for parents, especially moms, to ask for help.
Obviously, parenting on any given day is not an easy thing, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, whether you're coming from a single household, whether you have, two income families. When it comes to kind of just across the board, whether you're a toddler parent, a baby, a teenager, what are some techniques that parents and their children can use? And we kind of just need to take a second, whether it's a mental health check, maybe it's taking a break. How do we go about having those conversations and implementing them and making them more, normal?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say to parents of any age is something called modeling without expectation, which means you're going to model how to take that space and how you calm yourself down, how you slow something down without expecting your kids to do it as well. So I like to say to people, what are your 5 things that are your go-to things? Ice water, reading a book, listening to music, going outside, and then, having a popsicle. What are your 5 things that are good ways for you to take a pause? It is so common that we as parents and adults will ask kids to do things that we ourselves don't do regularly. Like we'll say to a kid, you need to calm down and take a breath, but we're not calming down and taking a breath, So how do we start? It starts with us as parents. How do we model how to do those things in front of our kids? And kids are really observant. They're going to start doing it too when they see that it's working, and it will work.
Well, in terms of Mother's Day, we know this is what we're celebrating here today. What do you like to tell parents about, how do you celebrate in a way that makes sense, that's practical, and doesn't add any more stress to the parent?
Totally. Well, that's going to vary family to family, as most things do, right? Because every family is different. But I really encourage people to try to take some of the wind out of the sails of this holiday. There's so much pressure on moms to show up perfectly, or for dads and partners or kids to do the perfect gift or the perfect morning. And you know what? At the end of the day, families are going to family every day of the year, whether it's Christmas or Mother's Day or any other holiday. You never know when a kid is going to have a tantrum. And so sometimes we need to think a little bit more broadly about what does this day mean to us as a family, sort of like how May is mental health month. We're talking about it all year long. We're pushing it all year long, but May is really the month that we're joining together to do it together. And I think that's the same thing about holidays like Mother's Day, is we need to be celebrating moms all year long, and moms need to be getting their needs met all year long instead of just banking on one day out of 365 to have a special breakfast. How are we attending to those needs that we have all of the other times of the year? But then really, what are we doing on Mother's Day specifically? How is that going to be different? How are we expressing gratitude? And it's a shared responsibility. Moms, think about what this day means to you. Does it mean being apart from your family? Does it mean being with your family? Does it mean it's a day like any other day because we're always moms, right? And dads and partners and kids, what does it mean for you to celebrate your partner, your wife, your mother? What does that look like? Think about who she is, what matters to her. Sometimes making Mother's Day really meaningful isn't about how much money you spend, it's about how much thought. So even just writing a really thoughtful note on a regular old piece of paper in an envelope and giving it to your mom that gives some reflections about your relationship is a really beautiful way to celebrate the day.
Well, that's really amazing. Thank you for coming in and sharing this with us today, and happy Mother's Day to you.
Thank you so much, Adrian.